Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Philip Radukic, and I'm one of the product managers here at CA Experts, co-responsible for IntelliPID and browser-based viewing. Today, we're going to have a closer look at how to use Universal Plan Viewer, UPV, to work with commissioning systems. As always, this session will be recorded, and we will provide you the link to the recording subsequently by email. At any time during the webinar, feel free to use the question panel and state your questions, and I will try to answer as many of them as possible at the end of the session. This being said, let's start right away with the agenda for today's webinar. So we're going to look at following topics. First of all, assigning commissioning systems to PNIDs, creating system subdivisions on existing lines, using the legend feature for data visualization, and reporting features for commissioning system related information, and assigning and visualizing commissioning systems also in the 3D model. And without any ado, I would actually start right away with the live demo here. So in order to actually work with commissioning systems, we should have a look at custom attributes first. UPV itself, as most of you might already know, is not changing any original data coming from the authoring system, but we're basically putting additional information on top of the authoring system data, and that way we're basically working with revision safe versions. So let me go into PNID first. What are custom attributes? In the right panel, you actually see attributes and files, and under attributes, all the attributes attached to a document or an object in the document are displayed. Most of them are just static, so you cannot change them. One of them, commissioning system, you see is colored yellow. Why is that? Because this is a custom attribute that has been added by a definition file or through a definition file where you can actually change the values and use, for example, free text or in this case, code lists to select from available options. How are these actually created, these custom attributes? Well, quite easy. We have a file called IntelliPID attributes.xlsx, and all we're doing is telling it, okay, please add the following attribute, com systems. Source attribute is the attribute it attaches to. In this case, we're attaching the attribute to the SPID information. You can set filters if you want to filter it for certain objects only. In this case, we didn't set any filter, and saying, okay, data type code list and the default value. Saying what code list to use, and on the code lists, we can actually see the code list commissioning system has a definition for unknown with a color code, and then commissioning systems 1 through 5 with according hexadecimal color codes. When UPV started, this information is loaded into the model, and this is what we see here. So how do we work with this? Once we have set this file, this code list, we can just go ahead and say, okay, for example, in this case, I want this station here between the two reducers to actually belong to commissioning system 1. So I select my objects and just pick the drop down and say, okay, commissioning system 1. And let's say this line here, connecting, is supposed to be commissioning system. Well, I'll take 3 because the magenta and the red, they're too close together. And then select this part here. I'll actually select the complete rest of the line and say, okay, this is commissioning system 4. So now we've set 3 commissioning systems and 1 PNID, but how do we actually see which one belongs to which? We have the option to actually visualize the custom attributes, and there's 2 ways to get there. Let's take the first way. So in the left menu, you have an icon where it says to open the custom attributes panel. This option is only available if custom attributes are actually loaded. If there's no IntelliPID attributes file or respectively attributes.xlsx for the 3D part, then this icon will not appear. So since we have a file loaded here, all I have to do is activate it, and on the right panel, we get the custom attributes panel shown. And here I can select from the drop-down between none and commissioning system, because we only have commissioning system as a custom attribute set here. So once I activate this, it's starting to colorize everything according to the commissioning system it belongs to. So in this case, we've defined unknown as gray, and the rest will be colored by commissioning system. And we also have a legend right here. And the legend shows us the color codes. So red is commissioning system 1, blue is commissioning system 3, green is commissioning system 4. About the icons we see here, I'll come back to those a bit later. But keep that menu in mind. So if I want to actually do the quick way of selecting a commissioning system being visualized, there's also a different way. Now that I'm going back to our attributes by selecting any object, you see that my formerly yellow attribute has turned red. What does this mean? This actually means that the visualization of this custom attribute has been activated in the custom attributes panel. There's a shortcut to do that, so everything I did here in the custom attributes panel, I can also do by double-clicking the attribute. And you see when I double-click it, it turns on or off. So let's turn the visualization back on. What do I do if I, for example, want to select an object like this line here? So it's one line, and I can actually assign a commissioning system only to the whole line. But let's say I actually want to separate this right part from the rest of the line. So how would I do that? In this case, we select Files. I've already created the folder Webinar Files, and now I'm opening a PID scat and call it, oh, just lazy, I'll just call it commissioning. And enter the edit mode. So we have a few icons here. This is our IntelliPID sketching, where we can also do some conceptual design. But today we're going to concentrate on this first icon down here, which is called break line. So when I click on a certain side of an object to the line, it actually selects this position. When I say, okay, do a break line, it will ask me, do you want the segment to become a new object? And you can already see that this part where I clicked to between the valve and the T here has turned green and say yes. And now I can assign, go back to attributes and assign this part commissioning system 5, for example. And now we actually want to do this. When I select this line, again, you see it's on both sides of the valve, of the control valve. Well, I actually want this side and apply a break. Yes, I want this to become a new segment, and then I can basically highlight the objects and say, this is all commissioning system 5. This way, we've actually created a subdivision here. And this subdivision can now be treated separately from the rest of the line and can be assigned a separate commissioning system. So as I mentioned before, keep actually an eye on the object I showed you here, the button I showed you here. In Custom Attributes panel, the last one, which says Place Legend. So once we print this out, we will see the colors, but on a printout, nobody will know, okay, which color actually means what, because this legend we have here is in the app, but not on the printout. Therefore, we can activate the legend feature, turn it on and off, and whenever we place or reposition it, it will save this position under files in the IntelliPID legend positions. And I can also say, okay, for every future PNID I open that does not have a set position yet, I want actually this position to be the default position to open legend in. So I'll go to the Files menu, File Management, and here again we have the same icon. And this sets the current position for the legend as default. So every PNID we open from now on will have the legend in this spot. Well, what other functions does our legend have? So if I zoom in closer, basically see we have unknown, we have commissioning system 1, commissioning system 3, 4, 5. Where's the 2? That's this eye icon we have here. That's taking care that we only see those entries in the legend that are represented on this current PNID. By deactivating the eye symbol, let me zoom in closer. You see, we can switch between displaying all available commissioning systems and only those represented on the current PNID. So what else can we do here? Basically, you can just go ahead now and save this as a PDF and say, okay, yeah, I just want this PNID as shown. Let's say, okay, and save this in my folder. And you see it directly opens in Acrobat exactly as we had it with the legend in place. Let me zoom in closer so you see it's the filtered legend that we exported here. But what else can we do here? This legend position, that's interesting, but a lot of times people ask, well, I actually want to colorize this not only by turning on custom attributes, but I actually want to keep my coloring as it is. So let me revert all colors here and turn off the custom attribute visualization. I can use, for example, color files. So I've prepared a display style sheet. Let me actually share this with you, what it looks like, where we define the color to use, the condition, in this case, our commissioning system, group name. This is more or less for display, where you can also combine multiple conditions within one group, and the legend text. So what is this for? In our legend that we just created, we had the original commissioning system names as they were named in the attributes file. But this is not really speaking an open, speaking naming here. So we might want to use different naming for the legend. How we do that? By actually entering a display text for the legend entry. And for example, I have the option to gray out anything else. And I set this to no, because I don't want this one to appear in the legend, because it's just something I'm using for displaying it, but it's not really something I want to report on. So we can also turn on and off if the entries are going to show up in the legend or not. And eventually we have a line width factor, where we can define the line width of this coloring. So basically, in this case, let me put in, for example, 3 for commissioning system 1, and we'll see the effect right away in UPV. So once I go in here, I can either click on commissioning systems to load this color file, or I can have it with a legend, but then I would have to activate this first before loading the color file. And now let me actually load all of these. And it says, okay, open 7 related drawings. No, not right now. So when I zoom in closer, you will see that the line width of the red line, being commissioning system, differs from the rest because we've defined the line width to be 3 instead of 2 as for the rest of the systems. And we can also use this color files to basically load, and that's where these groups come into place, just specific ones. So in this case, I just want commissioning system 1 to show, gray out anything else, say OK. Don't open the related drawings, and you see everything will now be gray except for our commissioning system 1. And the legend will display the clean name, commissioning system 001 product X, instead of CS underbar 001, because we have defined it in the call file like that. So a function that would help us here would be if we could actually bulk print commissioning systems by integrating basically all PIDs where this is represented. So for this, I'll take my off-page connector, jump to the next page, and say, and I want to add, let's say, these lines on this vessel to commissioning system number 1. So it's still grayed out, but if I load the color file again and say, okay, give me everything like in the first one, it will apply it to the open drawings again. And now we see commissioning system 1 is represented in 2 drawings. While we're doing this, I'll come back to that in the next step. If we're loading the color file here, saying, okay, give me the commissioning systems. And let's say I actually want to have separate PDF files that contain only one commissioning system at once. In this case, I can use the PDF export single system, pick a folder to export to, and then wait for the PDF creation to finish. And it will create 2, actually in this case 3 files that contain the according commissioning systems here. So when I open up commissioning system 1, you will see this PDF document consists of 2 pages, and only those 2 that contain commissioning system 1. For commissioning system 3, we will have actually only 1 pager, because commissioning system 3 has been only assigned on 1 PID, and for commissioning system 4, let's select it, it's basically the same thing here. So in this case, we can also use the commissioning system for exporting them individually. Let me close this down again and revert all colors by going to the color menu and say, okay, clear styles. And didn't want to do it. So let me reopen the PID, because the changes have now not been saved to the PID SPC. But what else can we do? with this information. So we now entered additional attributes, and now we actually want to report on the related information here, and also across PNIDs. How would I do that? I actually created a predefined report here, but I can just show you step by step how to create a report by clicking on File Management, Create Report. So now I could pick this one, Commissioning Systems here, or I could create a new one. Basically, when creating a new one, I can select all elements, selection current PNID, all elements in current PNID, or all elements from all open PNIDs, which would now be only this one. But I actually want to have all elements and include sketch data. That's okay. And basically enter drawing name, fluid code, commissioning system, an item tag, take the fluid code out. If I click OK, it would generate a report. I've now pre-saved the report, so I can just click on here, commissioning systems. And it will give me the commissioning system for the currently open PNID. Now, for commissioning system 001, I've actually defined it also on multiple sheets. This report has been set to actually look only in the current sheet. So I can still go back into the definition of the report and say, give me all elements. And the order that's shown here is the order of the columns up here. And now it will recreate the report. And even if I did some changes here subsequently by, for example, switching again to the other drawing and saying, okay, and I want this line to be included too. That was commissioning system 1. I can go back to the report commissioning systems and just hit this reload report button up here. And you will see that the list has become longer, including item tags, the commissioning system, and the drawing name. It can be found out. Additionally, I can also change information by clicking on the commissioning system here and say, okay, I want this assigned to 2. No, hold on, I want it back to 1. And all the changes we do here in the report, they're also transferred to the PNID in this case. And we can also filter, for example, just for commissioning system 1 by right-clicking on the name and say, okay, show CSO1 exclusively. And then we'll basically get this sorted by drawing name. We'll click here. So we can do a detailed reporting, which objects are contained in which commissioning system and on what drawing they can be found. So this is for PNID, but can I automatically transfer this to the 3D? Well, not automatically, but actually coming close to it. How's that? I can actually go ahead and, for example, now colorize by commissioning systems here, and select my objects. In this case, oh, okay. I reverted the break earlier. Let me actually show my sketch. So now we're back. This one here, since we applied the break in PNID, currently we're not able, that's the only setback here, to create this type of split in 3D too. This is a feature that might come in the future, but for right now, what we can do is select the objects here, and under attributes, it will tell us, okay, 61 3D objects found. And when we click on that, it will select exactly those objects in 3D. And now I can go ahead and just assign commissioning system 1 to those 2. And by double clicking here, I can actually colorize by commissioning system. And going back to the PNID, I can now go ahead and select these ones here too. except for this part, which will probably also get the color now of the latest selected pin ID, as I said. So we cannot do breaks here, but this is commissioning system number 1. And I made a mistake here because these ones here, they are actually commissioning system number 5. Going back here, selecting them again and saying, yeah, this is commissioning system 5. And when we now look here, we can actually see that those lines that we broke, they will have the latter selected commissioning system, but our objects belonging to the other commissioning systems are directly highlighted in the color.